Hey, thank you. I am Joaquin Mobley, Motus JustUs project strategist, a JustUs monologuist, and the vice president of community works. It is great to be with the conference on world affairs and present Motus Theater's JustUs Monologues.
And my name is Tanya Titus. I am an undocumented immigrant. I am a monologuist in Motus's Undocu America series and the National Outreach and Education Director for Motus Theater, where we create original theater to facilitate dialogue on critical issues of our time. We use the power of art to build alliances across diverse segments of our community. And before we begin, we want to acknowledge that although we're coming to you live from many different places, today we want to honor that Colorado stands on the land of the Arapaho, the Cheyenne, and the Ute.
Absolutely. We also want to acknowledge that there are ongoing struggles with racism, health, and economic fears, or having beloved family and friends in prison who are experiencing greater exposure to COVID-19.
So before we begin the scheduled programming, let's just take a moment to take 3 collective deep breaths to ground ourselves. Ready? You can do it with me. Inhale. Exhale. 2 more. And one last one.
We are excited to share with you tonight stories from Motus Theater's JustUs Tour, where people who have experienced incarceration share stories about its impact on their lives so we can reflect and take action. They were created in Motus Monologue Workshop in collaboration with Motus Artistic Director, Ms. Kirsten Wilson.
One of Motus's strategies for the JustUs Tour to strengthen our community and our country is to present allied performances called shoebox stories, where we ask people who are often in positions of public leadership in our community and our country to stand in the shoes of a JustUs Motus monologist and read their story aloud. Prior to each performance, the guest reader meets with a monologist who shares their story with them as a sort of ritual to pass on the weight of the story. Then, during the performance, the guest reader reads aloud the story back to the monologist. The readers don't need to agree with everything they read in the story. They just need to be willing to suspend judgment, model courageous empathy, and see the world for a moment through someone else's eyes.
Absolutely. Tonight, we got a special treat for you. You will hear the Executive Director of Colorado Department of Corrections, Mr. Dean Williams, model civic hospitality and deep listening by stepping into the shoes of Motus monologist, Mr. Daniel Guillory, and reading aloud his story. After the reading, he will reflect together with Daniel on the impact of reading his story. This evening, you will also hear 2 Motus JustUs monologists, Derek Bell and myself, read our own stories out loud.
We're also excited that Grammy Award-winning saxophonist Ernie Watts is going to improvise short musical responses in between each monologue that he hopes will allow us to feel more fully the sorrows, hopes, and dreams of the monologist, as well as all of our own aspirations for justice as a community and a country. We offer this music as restorative medicine, so we hope that when he plays the saxophone to the monologist, you know he's also playing for you. So let his music inspire you so we all leave tonight more ready for the work ahead to support true justice in our community. So before we begin with stories, Ernie Watts is going to play a short reflection aimed at opening our hearts and minds so we are prepared to listen deeply. Here's the great Ernie Watts.
Amazing, amazing, absolutely amazing. Thank you to Mr. Ernie Watts for gracing us with the power of your music. Next up, I'm going to be sharing my story and my plight with what I went through what led up into my incarceration. It's titled Unhirable. I thank you all for being here and just being present, both in mind, body, and soul. So bear with me as I get through this. Sometimes it is hard for me to read because it brings up a lot of old feelings. It's late fall, 2002, and I'm 18 years old, full of strength and light. I tripped all the way from Washington Heights in Manhattan to Flushing, Queens, the last stop on the 7 train. Down to my last, I traveled to Home Depot to be interviewed for a job. I was filled with hope, but I was cloaked in desperation. I walked in to meet my potential new employer. His name was Sheldon. We interviewed, and I killed it. I mean, I absolutely killed it. I'm sure Sheldon felt my hunger. I detected his Caribbean accent, and I tried to find common ground immediately, being that my father was from that part of the world, and I, too, was raised in that culture of hard work and discipline. He bought in on me working there. He told me how much I was going to love the job and that I would make good money and I'd be able to, provide for my family. Sheldon then took my social security number and stepped behind his desk to run it through his system. I would not let myself feel anything but confident as he typed in the 9 digits that would determine my possibilities. I insisted on the image of him returning to me with his hand held out and ready to shake, and that I would return to my abuela with the reassurance of having a new job. I mean, to be honest with you guys, I had to. See, earlier that morning, the stakes had been raised. I had been startled awake. The sounds of bachata music, sobbing, police sirens, and, the soft conversation between 2 individuals outside my building discussing the terms and conditions of the pre-purchase of narcotics. But that's not what woke me. See, the noise of my neighborhood had become my background music. And in a weird way, it helped me sleep better. I could usually drown out even the loudest of those sounds. But that morning, something was off. Something was different. Something was wrong. See, there was no sweet, beautiful aroma of fried yuca, eggs, and onion that my abuela makes for me and my abuelo every morning, nor did I hear the sound of Telemundo coming underneath my bedroom door. When I opened the door to my room, still halfway asleep, wiping the coal out of my eyes, I discovered that the sobbing sound that I had grown immune to was coming not from outside, but now from our family living room. It was my abuela who was sobbing. I ran to her side and kneeled down in front of her. ¿Qué estás pasando, abuela? She handed me 2 letters, one from my abuelo, stating that he would not receive his Social Security for another year, and another from public housing, informing my grandparents that because I was on probation for a felony drug conviction, I had to leave my home or my entire family who came to America and essentially were still immigrants would be evicted. It's amazing what a day brings and takes from us in our poverty-stricken communities. Absolutely amazing. See, just the night before, I had a feeling of stability and hope. After all, I had an actual interview for a job. Do you know how many applications an 18-year-old Black man has to fill out before they even get an interview? It was going to happen. My baby's mothers needed money for diapers and food, and now I was going to have it. But now looking at those letters and my abuela sobbing, the challenge was overwhelming. I didn't need just enough to support my kids in the start of college. I now needed enough for rent, a security deposit, and utilities, or simply hold the possibility of being homeless. And I had to figure out how to help my abuela pay her rent with no Social Security coming in. So once again, despite the vision that I had gathered for myself while in jail of getting a job and making it to college and staying out of the drug game, I was having to consider going back into it and possibly risking my freedom and my life. See, in the last year, I had already lost 2 friends, both murdered over rivalry for selling territory. Trying to stay strong for my well, I kissed her and walked away to prepare for my interview at Home Depot in a new state of mind, one now heavy with threat and despair. But you can't let people see that and think that they will hire you. Absolutely not. So I showered and I dressed. And I used every item of clothing I put on to build me up, to regain my hope, so I could get on that train and feel it all somehow working out. So there I was, sitting in Sheldon's office. Now I'm practically praying when his head finally reemerged from behind his computer screen. But by just looking at his face, I could tell immediately that everything had changed. Something was wrong. I was now dead to him, or at least untouchable. He wouldn't even look at me. The numbers had rolled out and I was officially unhirable. I started talking really fast. The way you do when you're nervous. I tried to regain my ground. I told him I could be on a probation period or, something like that. I just needed this job to take care of my kids. I shared what I was up against economically. He was unmoved, and his response to my sob story was just, sorry. But I was not going home without a job. Absolutely not. Please, Sheldon, listen, I'm trustworthy. I'm an honorable man. I'm asking for a shot, an opportunity, and a chance. He just looked at me, impervious to what I was going through, and asked that I leave the premises. I left, but I not only left the premises, I left New York. See, my mother lived out here in Colorado Springs, and I hoped to find work through her connections and stay out of the drug game. When I got to Colorado, I was surrounded by plenty of job offers in the community, but none of them were legal. See, did you guys know that according to the Brookings Institute, a black man without a criminal record is less likely to get called back for a job than a white man who checked the felony box? It's crazy. I went to prison in 2006 and was given twice the time for the same crime as the two white men who went up in front of the judge just before me. That startled me awake, even more than the cries of my abuela. I was awake and angry with the injustice of it, and fierce with an intention of alchemy to take all the steel, all the concrete, and all the brutality, as well as the disregard they gave me as DOC number 147388, and turn it into my own body armor. See, I may have to fight to survive, but I will not be your entertainment, and I am definitely not your victim, and I will not let you make me your victim. Every day I gave myself a new challenge to help me keep my focus and my sanity. First, I built up my chest. I built up my biceps. Then I learned how to read and write in the language of my abuelos, Spanish. After that, I learned to read Arabic, the language of the black leaders in prison who were resisting with self-respect, self-love, and prayer. I re-enrolled in college and got several certifications, despite all the obstacles and barriers to getting my education in prison. And even with this arsenal of strengths, it was hard to stay out of prison. When I was finally released, see, they let me out with just $10 in my pocket. I had no fresh clothes as well as no hope. I almost didn't make it, despite my nearly 10 years for preparing for that very moment. But I did, and I'm here. And now I work to support other people coming out of our prison system, guiding them as they take the skills they learn in illegal economies and transform themselves into entrepreneurs with legal opportunities and legal products, because this system simply wastes our brilliance. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Joaquin. And now Ernie Watts will play his musical response. And while he does so, please share a few thoughts in the YouTube comments about what most impacted you as you heard Joaquin's story. Here's Ernie Watts.
Thank you once again, Mr. Ernie Watts. And now my fellow Motus JustUs Monologist, Derek Bell, will read his autobiographical monologue from the community barbershop located here in the southeast part of Colorado Springs. Derek, go ahead and take over, sir.
All right. I appreciate you, Joaquin. I also just wanted to just give this dedication to my mother. It's her birthday. She's my best friend, you know, and she's helped inspire me and just to help me take responsibility and not be entitled to anything that I have, any blessings that I have. And I would like to get into my monologue. I didn't know what led me there. It was 2 a.m. I was in my car parked across from the prison. I didn't know I was driving to the prison until I actually arrived. And I didn't know I was praying until I finally heard my own words repeating over and over. Stay solid, stay solid. I've been out of prison for over 5 years, but it's easy to go back. In so many ways, I'm not going back. But sometimes on the street, I walk by somebody and smell jail. And it's like, I'm right back inside. I had to pull myself together. Most people who spend any time in prison, we never know when we fell asleep if our dreams will take us back. We wake up screaming and open our eyes, hoping to see that this nightmare is over. We were spat out from the belly of the beast back into the streets, but that beast is now inside our belly. And we do the best we can because you never know what that day will bring. I know I never wanted to be a gang member, never wanted to be associated with drug dealer, never looked up to that stuff. But I ended up putting my energy in the wrong person. In 2002, I was out of high school, working full-time at a computer school, going to college in computer science. When I got a call from a guy that I met in my early days, we met in the commissary back in groceries when our parents were in the military, and we latched on to each other. We would go to parties together back in high school, and there would be times that we get into fights. I fight his fights, literally fight his fights. Not because I thought he was going to get beat up. I just wanted to show him that you got a brother that's with you and always with you. You know what I'm saying? I guess I always wanted to be like my dad, intense, fight you for looking at him wrong. Same time he give you everything, loyal, strong, fought with his brothers, for his brothers in the army. When my old friend called, I hadn't seen him in years. But when he showed up, we were right back with each other. Those were the best times of my life. We were inseparable, even dated women that were friends. So he wanted some help with the business. I was all about it. With my computer and accounting skills to make all of the money from the drugs we were selling high. I wasn't planning on getting into the drug trafficking, but I turned from something legit to a throw off for a friend. And of course, well, the love of money. You hear all the time about how addictive drugs are, but we don't talk about how addictive selling drugs is. In that year, 2003, I went from assy to classy, from counting pennies to having rolls of hundreds in my pockets. 1988 Toyota Camry to a 2000 GMC Envoy. From being treated by the world like a nobody to a somebody. I'm just coming out of high school, and there's no longer a teacher or coach asking good questions about what I'm up to, because they know you. They know you want to build something gracious. Do you want drugs involved? Hell no. I didn't want drugs to be involved because I knew it was harming people. But the money, it's just like the drugs. It's an addiction. And because I wasn't selling the drugs myself, I could put it behind me like, okay, I'm not going to worry about the people harming themselves. I'm going to make sure that me and him put our money to the right places where we can do things like we're able to invest in the community. So one morning he calls and tells me that he's getting a little paranoid about the people he's meeting at the Walgreens parking lot. He thinks they're going to rob him. He says, "Can you cover me?" Man, I've been covering him for years, since we were kids. His fights are my fights. Unfortunately, I was arrested. They ran me over in their truck and they put my foot got caught in the axle and almost pulled off. And when they handcuffed me on a gurney, and as I lay in my hospital bed, they interrogated me, trying to get information on him. They didn't care I was in intensive care. I refused to say anything still. And for that lack of information, they pretty much gave me the hammer. I thought by keeping silent, I was saving this life. I saved him, a number of people we work with, from going to prison. I took everything they were trying to charge everybody, took all those cases and put them on me. All on the notion that if he was in the same spot, he would do the same thing. It was only later that I discovered I was set up. The case was all on him, but he knew if I showed up instead of him at the Walgreens parking lot, they put it all on me. I was not charged as no accountant on a state drug case, but labeled. I was labeled a mastermind drug trafficker and sent to federal holding. And that fact is, I was guilty of hiding a major drug scheme. And that was facts. I had misplaced my loyalty and courage on the wrong person for the wrong ends and been lured into denial by money and the desire for a true brother. I hurt people by selling drugs to my community. That, very much so, I was guilty. But why is it that I can be sent away for a decade on a non-violent drug charge, and yet the DA prosecutors who sent me into that prison of violence and assault are presumed innocent because they know what is going to happen to you in there? They know what's going to happen. I knew nothing about surviving those environments or no damn prison politics. I knew nothing about that stuff, but I did know one thing. If you come attack me, you put me in that center of brutality, try to assault me, I'm going to beat the hell out of you. Not because I wanted to show off. I wasn't into violence for violence. I'm a ball player, a college computer student. I'm just a man-to-man fighter. This is protection. You know what I'm saying? But they sent me into that evil place, and it is crazy in there. 1 minute, there's a group of men standing in a circle. Then, damn, boom, you took an eye out. You know what I'm saying? He got hit with a lock in the sock. You know what's going on in there? It's hell. I don't want my head slammed into a concrete desk. I don't want to be raped. I don't want to kill nobody. But I don't want to be killed. Every chance I got, I was calling my mom crying like, I don't want to be here. I do not want to be here. I was on my own in the feds. No gang, no protection. So a few men tried to number me up. They got me in the cell. I looked at all of them. I said, someone's about to get hurt, extremely about to get messed up. But you know, one of them still ran in on me. And by the time he did, I did what I needed to do to survive. And if a corrections officers had not seen enough of what had happened and been willing to speak up for me and say it was self-defense, I would still be in prison to this day for attempted murder. And even though I was determined not guilty, the criminal justice system still took my innocence away because they put me in a position where to survive, I had to stab a man in the neck. And his blood was pouring out my body all over me. All over me. And it should be all over the judge, the DAs, and the prosecutors too. And that's not even the worst of it. That's not even the worst. Do you know how much this system actually kills white, black, Mexican people? Like, kills them mentally. Do you know, by being good kids, whatever, not really that much training, and they get sent to those environments on one mistake, just one. And by sending them to prison, they have already killed someone. But the DAs, prosecutors, judges, they don't get charged for that. And it's not just the inmates. What do you think happens to the correctional officers? At one point, it was their first time seeing it, their first stabbing, their first rape. You watch the new ones, the green ones, how the longer they are out there, the farther away they are from themselves. They become lost too. We are all locked up in the belly of the beast. And when you leave the beast, it is inside your belly too. They point at you, judge you, say, look at that pit bull. He's dangerous. He bites. Look at his prison file. He's a monster. They take no responsibility for throwing you into that pit. No responsibility. Well, I take responsibility for myself and what I have to do to not lose myself or give them an excuse to send me back. And I pray for me and everyone in that prison to stay solid, because we are not their beast. We are unknown to them in mental capacity and ability to adapt. Deep inside of us, we are sharp business owners, multitaskers, entrepreneurs, loyal brothers, strong fathers. It is true. The beast we've been fed may be in our belly, and it is hard control. But with the necessary amount of guidance, power, and love, our true spirit will emerge beyond its teeth. And that spirit is not impulsive. It's not reactive. It's our true purpose. And broken pieces put together by experience, and it gets stronger by the day of new learning. So stay solid. Stay solid. I'm praying for you. I'm praying for you, man. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Derek. And once again, while Ernie Watts plays his musical response, please go ahead and just share a few thoughts into the YouTube comments about what most impacted you as you heard Derek's story. Here's Ernie Watts.
Wow, so soothing, so soothing. And now my fellow Justice monologuist, Daniel Guillory, will introduce his reader. Enjoy.
Hello, everyone. My name is Daniel Guillory, and I have a poem that relates to this whole idea of the director of Dean Williams reading my story aloud. This is called We Are One. Kingdom living, undeniable prosperity, peace, purpose, and providence coming and going in every direction. No disconnection, resisting infection, above rejection, making plays in different ways, redeeming the days, based on the immaculate foundation of unconditional love, sparking hope where there is none, speaking life to the dead one. By example, rising above all the chatter that really doesn't matter, Backbiting, gossip, and lies in disguise stopped right there on the spot because I'm not moved by what I hear, feel, see, taste, or touch, because I'm much more than that, because I'm much sure than that. I am the apple of my father's eye, a direct descendant of the Most High. I am powerful, confident, humble, and true. I am me, but I am also you, because we are one. And with that, I'd like to introduce Dean Williams, the executive director of the Department of Correction, in whom I am most honored for him stepping in my shoes and reading my story. And with that, I'll give it over to you, Dean.
Thank you. Thank you, Daniel. Hi, everyone. I'm Dean Williams. As Dean introduced me, it's a great privilege to be here tonight. And Daniel, I find it an honor to read your story. And thank you to Motus Theater for putting many of the issues around justice and around incarceration. And with that, I'll be reading Daniel Guillory's story, Just Us Monologue, entitled Truth, Not Facts. The last time I went to jail, I'd been in there for about 18 months while I was fighting my case. I called my mom. Hey, Mama, you guys want to come bond me out? She said, well, let me talk to your sisters, see if we can get up the money. And she talked to my sisters and they said, nope, no, Mom. He's up to the same thing. He's going to get out and go right back to the drugs, so we ain't in. But my mama said, well, I'm coming to get you. She went out and got a loan and came and got me. I was strong in the word, and I meant it when I said I was done with crack. After my mom bailed me out, I went to pick up my car that had been impounded while I was in jail. Right before they arrested me, they searched my car, tore it up. I mean, tore it up. I had a nice Cadillac, and they pulled everything out of it that they could, but they hadn't found no dope in the car. I was finally arrested for what they found in my house. I drove my car home, and I was slowly putting the insides of it back together when I found a pipe under the front seat with a big old rock right next to it. And I'm thinking, did they set me up? I mean, they had searched my car up and down, even looked at my spare tire, and the dope was right there under the seat, just clear as day. I picked up that rock and that pipe and I put it in my pocket. I said, nope, I ain't gonna do it. But I didn't throw it away. I knew I should have thrown it, but I didn't throw it. And later on that day, I broke it up and hit that thing, and boy, whoo, Scotty beamed me up. Woo! As soon as I got beamed up, here comes my mom. I mean, as soon as I took the hit, not 20 seconds later, she came home and saw me. I saw the tears in her big old brown eyes, and I said, Mom, I bet if you had known this, you'd left my ass in there. She looked at me with tears in her eyes, and she said, no, baby, I still would have come and got you. Sometimes when I tell this story, it makes me weep, just recalling those words. No, baby, I still would have come and got you. Oh my God. I mean, you could have kicked me or cussed me out. But that kind of blatant love makes you butt naked, raw, and vulnerable. There's no defense. It makes you defenseless. Anything else I could have handled. Come on, bring it on. You're a liar, a failure, an addict, worthless, a criminal. That's all you got? Yeah, I can stand up to that. But love and grace will lay you out, butt naked, no clothes on. Oh my God. That was what made me think differently, and the pivotal point that led me to be drug-free today. that's the thing we got to convey to society. It's when a person is broken, messed up, and deserves love the least, that is when they need it most. And that grace is the thing that will give people the 360 right there. The key is helping people remember their importance, understand their magnificence, and then invest in helping them reach their potential instead of punishing them. But the criminal justice system takes all of our shortcomings and faults and it magnifies them. That's all they look at. They take the smallest part of us and make the biggest part of our existence, when all this good stuff is just sitting right there, here, just waiting. It's dormant. It's waiting to grow, but it's not put in the right environment. And then instead, they send us down a dark tunnel into a place of violence at every intersection. Gladiator school, where you learn how to place magazines around your belly in case someone tries to stick you. You learn to always step out of your pants if you sit on the toilet in case you're attacked. And when you act out in that violence, they send you further down into the hole where there are no people, just an overflowing toilet, rats, and isolation. If you drop an oak tree into a concrete world, it's still alive in there and vibrant, but it's not growing. It's just dormant. But if you take it from there and drop it in a decent place where there's enough sun, earth, nutrients, you don't even have to plant it. You just put it somewhere it can possibly grow, and that thing would take off on its own. The fact is, all of us in prison are human beings who committed crimes, but that is not our truth. We are not ontologically criminal. That is not our essence. And instead of helping us return to the full truth of who we are, the criminal justice system takes away our names, gives us DOC numbers, robs us of our dignity, freedom, and happiness. And most of all, the potential to be our best selves that we could have been if someone had tried to nurture us instead of neuter us. And how can it change as long as the justice system continues to lie about what it's doing to us? They give us a piece of paper that says, the court is sentencing the defendant to incarceration for 10 years of rehabilitation and is fitted towards the sentence. Rehabilitation, my ass. There's no rehabilitation. When you send us to the Department of Corrections, you're making us more incorrect. There's not a sliver of corrections in that place. Those of us telling our stories as part of the Justice Project are fairly new to this whole idea of restorative justice. But we know that telling the truth and taking responsibility for the harm we have caused is a big part of it. And we have reflected as a group in our writing process on that harm. But we are also asking the criminal justice system itself to sit in a circle with us and hear the ways we have been harmed, because it itself has been criminal in the name of justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean Williams and Daniel Guillory. While Ernie Watts plays his musical response, please share a few thoughts in the YouTube comments about what most impacted you as you heard Daniel's story read by Dean Williams today. Here's Ernie Watts.
Wow, so soothing, especially after a story like that. Thank you so much to Ernie Watts for gracing us with your musical inspiration to keep moving towards justice. And thank you to the JustUs Monologists sharing their truth to transform the criminal legal system. And to Dean Williams, thank you for stepping into our shoes for a moment by reading Daniel's story. We truly appreciate it. Now, we're going to go into a little bit of questioning and talking with both Mr. Dean Williams as well as Daniel. Dean, if you don't mind, we want to know what most impacted you as you read Mr. Guillory's story.
Well, I guess two things, right? One, sometimes all you need is one person in your life to help you, whether or not it's a family member, a mom, a dad, a grandma, somebody in your life. If just one person can believe in you when you can't believe in you anymore, sometimes that can just be enough, right? The other thing, and just quite frankly, I feel is that I don't like putting myself in your shoes. And because it's hard. I see the things, Daniel, every day that I don't like. And there's quite a number of them. And it's, these are real people's lives. It's your life, Joaquin's life. And I know it's the real deal. This isn't an exercise. These are, there's 15,000 people in my custody, 16,000 people in this state, in the custody Department of Corrections. Closer to 20,000 if you count the halfway houses and other locations. So it's the real deal, and it gets me in the gut.
Thank you. Just to speak to what you were mentioning, the grace piece of it, right? Somebody just believing in you is very impactful. And I mean, as we can see, it changes lives. Mr. Daniel, what most impacted you about Mr. Dean Williams reading aloud your story today?
Oh my goodness, his authenticity is absolutely transparent. I mean, it's I see right through the guy, man. There's nothing opaque, and his spirit is vibrant, and he just affected me in a profound way, and I am deeply, deeply honored and moved by the way he portrayed my story. Thank you very much, Dean.
Absolutely. Dean, we would also like to hear, how do you hold Daniel's story from your role as the Executive Director of the Department of Corrections?
Well, I think Tanya mentioned this is the start, right? I don't have to agree with everything that the way Daniel viewed it, but if I walked through Daniel's shoes every moment, maybe I would see it the same way, exactly precisely the same way that Daniel saw it, right? But here's the thing. Here's the most important thing. I don't have to agree with everything to try to convince everybody else within the sound of my voice. I probably don't have to convince many people here that something is wrong. Something is wrong. I spent about 3 years in my old state running that system, trying to convince people there it doesn't have to be this way. It can be better than this. It can be more humane. Their dignity can still, be in existence with someone's life.
Yes.
And other countries and other places around the world, they just got it better than us. They've just done it better. It doesn't mean people get away with highway robbery or there's not a consequence for your actions. There's a consequence for all of our actions. If I drive home too fast tonight, something happens, I crashed into somebody. I'm not going to get a total wash out of that, right? There's a consequence for everything that happens. But here's the thing. It's not only the level of incarceration that we do in the country that's so high, it's what we've created as a result of it. So I'm on a mission. I've been on a mission since I got here, and the rest of my team is on a mission to make prisons less traumatic and just a tiny little bit more normal. We have a long way to go, oh dear God, sometimes it seems like too much. Like sometimes I'm like, where do we begin? But these stories sort of reinforce, of course, that it's worth it, right? It's worth it to be on the journey, and in some ways get over our own denial that we've got this whole prison thing figured out. We don't, and it's okay. And I tell my staff, and I tell the recruits, it's okay to question what we've been doing. It's okay to say, I don't understand that anymore. Does anybody else? So that's my mission. That's our mission, right? And that we share. There's something wrong. It can be better than this. It can be different than this.
I would like to chime in. I have something to say. I think a major part is the system is so bound on behavior modification, how we behave. But that's just the result of how we think. We have to renew the way a person thinks of themselves. And the thing that most likely, for me personally, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, what changed my thinking was that grace. That grace is a better teacher than punishment. That when my mom granted me that grace that I know I did not deserve, it put my mindset in a place where I didn't want to violate that kindness and that thing that she had for me that I didn't even have for myself. So it's how we think that will determine our behavior, and just get away from the behavior modification and work on the mind, and somehow get into their heads where they change the way they think. If you think right, you'll live right.
Absolutely. Mr. Dean Williams and Mr. Daniel Guillory, do you have any final words or anything you want to add before we go into our next musical response from Ernie Watts and move to our Q&A?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you all. Here's Ernie Watts with the final song for us to digest the stories and conversation we heard tonight and reflect on actions we might want to take to support true justice and reform. Mr. Ernie Watts, take it away.
Thank you so much, Ernie. This does complete the performance section of the event, but we hope that you will all stay a little longer to reflect more with Dean Williams and the Motus JustUs Monologists in a Q&A. On behalf of Motus Theater, we want to again thank the Conference on World Affairs, the Executive Director of the Colorado Department of Corrections, Dean Williams, our Motus monologists, Joaquin Mobley, Derek Bell, and Daniel Guillory, as well as Motus's powerful contributing artists, including Motus Theater's Artistic Director, Kirsten Wilson, and saxophonist, Ernie Watts. And thank you for welcoming us into your space today. So if you're able, please consider donating to Motus Theater so that we can continue our strategic work. And please visit our website to find out how you can share these stories, as well as more information about Motus Theater.